you guys. Oh, here, by the way, the United States of America, folks. The resolution to denounce the horrors of socialism just passed, of course. Of course it did. With 109 Democratic votes as well. Including fucking Ro Khanna, I believe, who voted for it, didn't he? Summer Lee tweet on denouncing the horrors of socialism. Yeah, it's a great take, actually. It's one that I routinely also mention. It's pretty funny when Democrats are like, oh, we reject socialism. Like, you're literally lending credence to the argument that socialism is bad when they're gonna fucking call you socialist, you idiot. It's awesome. Yeah, Ro Khanna, congratulations for fucking voting. Denouncing the horrors of socialism, whereas socialist ideology necessitates a concentration of power. Bro, I do love... By the way. You know what's really funny? You know what's always really fucking funny? Whenever they want to talk about criticisms of socialism, it sounds like they're talking about capitalism. Socialist ideology necessitates a concentration of power that has time and time again collapsed into communist regimes, totalitarian rule, and brutal dictatorships. Sorry, what? A concentration of power that has time and time again collapsed into totalitarian rule and brutal dictatorships. Huh. That sounds a lot like capitalism. Socialism has repeatedly led to famine and mass murders, killing over 100 million people worldwide. The American government just voted for this. Saying, like Democrats in the House of Representatives said yes to this. Capitalism, which is the global power structure that we exist under, leads to 14 million deaths a year by famine alone. That is before we get to the wars and all of the other ways in which people die under capitalism. Remember, though, folks, there's a double standard. When famine occurs under communism, or when deaths happen under communism, that's because of the system. When 14 million people die a year due to famine, when we have a surplus of food, and the only problem is that we can't handle the logistics, and yet still 14 million people die every year due to famine and famine-related diseases. That's not the fault of capitalism. Don't ever say that. That's the fault of the individual. That's the fault of the individual. Come on now. Of course. That's personal responsibility. I'm sorry, you didn't work hard enough, children in Yemen. Work hard and don't be born in Yemen next time. That's right. Whereas many of the great crimes of history were committed by socialist ideologues, including Vladimir Lenin, who was dope, fuck you, Joseph Stalin, okay, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Kim Jong-il. It's interesting because, like, they add Pol Pot to this, which is always funny. Because, like, we were Pol Pot's allies, so that's odd. At least they didn't fucking add Ho Chi Minh to this, which I respect. Surprising. Why? How did Uncle Ho get away with not being added to this list? They put Pol Pot, but not Ho? That's weird. Whereas tens of millions of people died in the Bolshevik Revolution, at least 10 million people were sent to the gulags in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and millions more starved in the terror famine, Holodomor, in Ukraine. Whereas between 15 million and 55 million people starved to death in the wake of famine and devastation caused by the Great Leap Forward in China. Whereas the socialist experiment in Cambodia led to the killing fields in which over 1 million people were gruesomely murdered. You know, again, ask Henry Kissinger about that. That's interesting. Okay. Whereas up to 3.5 million people have starved in North Korea, dividing a land of freedom and a land of destitution. Huh. Who did genocide in North Korea? I wonder why people are starving in North Korea. It perhaps has nothing to do with the authoritarian regime that they exist under, which is true. Their regime is authoritarian. Let's be fucking real. I'm not going to sit here and you know, advocate for the Democratic people of Korea, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. But, like, you know, they're doing better, all things considered. Okay, I am not a Jusha supporter or defender. I don't think Jusha is Marxist-Leninist in general. But real interesting. Why are they starving? That's so weird. It's almost like they've been systematically forced out of participating with the global marketplace in any capacity whatsoever, and their only fucking major ally before China was defeated in the Cold War, and therefore, again, they had no help. They were doing all right. We're doing all right originally. Anyway. Whereas the Castro regime in Cuba expropriated the land in Cuban farmers and businesses of Cuban entrepreneurs, businesses like sugar plantations that had slaves that we in the United States were taking advantage of. That's the greatest dishonor, is that, sugar plantations that had slaves in them were, taken over by the government. Yeah, expropriation. So fucked up. Stealing their possessions and their livelihoods and exiling millions with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Whereas the implementation of socialism in Venezuela has turned the once prosperous nation into a failed state with the world's highest rate of inflation. Again, currency mismanagement aside, because obviously third world countries can't operate with quantitative easing in the same way that America can, because American dollar is whatever America still has the imperial forces backing it's backing and instilling confidence in people whatever they decide to do. So surprising that, no one else is allowed to do that except for the United States of America. But again, Venezuela, North Korea, Cuba. What is one through line in all of these nations? It's like, if they are such failures, then why do you always have to hit the fucking embargo button? Why do you always have to hit the sanction button so hard? If they're failing on their own as a consequence of their faulty ideology, why must you always tilt the scales in your favor? It's so weird. It's so strange to me. I never will understand it. I'm always thinking, if socialism is so bad and these nations are truly horrifyingly socialist, then why the fuck do you feel the need to intervene and make it worse? Anyway. Whereas the father of the Constitution, President James Madison, wrote that it is not just government, nor is property to secure under it, where the property which a man has his personal safety and personal liberty is violated by arbitrary seizures of one class of citizens for the service of the rest. Wait, but that happens right now. That's literally also, that happened back then too. It's just that property in that regard was considered like, human beings, like slaves, that. Okay, anyway, whereas the United States of America was founded on the belief of the sanctity of the individual, to which collectivistic system of socialism in all of its forms is fundamentally and necessarily opposed, now therefore be it that the Congress denounces socialism in all of its forms and opposes the implementation of socialist policies in the United States of America. We are never getting health care. Okay? We are never getting health care. Not happening. 109 Democrats voted for this. 109 Democrats in the House of Representatives voted yes on this. I don't know what else to say, man. Yeah, I mean, this is what Forced to Vote wanted to see, by the way. There you go. So, to all the Forced to Voters, there it is. They've openly shown that they do not care. They have openly shown that they, like, at a time when there is a Democratic president and just a slim majority in the House of Representatives for the Republican Party and a majority for the Democrats in the Senate, Here's the reality. This will never change unless you force them to. Okay? Why the fuck would they? Right now, capital runs it. How do you force them to? By organizing. By creating a mechanism of pushback first inside of your workforces where adults spend 80% of their lives in, and then building a network, a coalition of labor unions that can then strike at the heart of capital. Because without labor, without unions, there is no value, there is no capital to accumulate. That is the only way to do it. This is just symbolic, by the way. But even if it's symbolic, like, why the fuck do you vote yes for it? You know what I mean? That's the point. You fucking idiots. This is just a symbolic bill, okay? And to turn around and vote yes for this is so stupid. You're literally, they call you socialists every day. You are simply turning around and handing it to the Republicans. Yeah. It does show that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two sides of the same coin. Certainly.